Welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing with Dumb and Ditzy by TimelessTears. Be chapter 5. Chapter 5. Chapter 4. Perfect personas crumble like cookies. Finished! Spencer yelled cheerfully as he barreled back into the conference room, his hair messy and tinged with flecks of glitter. In his arms, he held a large piece of paper that overflowed almost to the floor with glitter clinging to the still drying glue. "Let me help you with that, pretty boy," Morgan offered, as he quickly got to his feet when he saw Reed struggling in the doorway. The last thing he wanted to see at that moment was the kid do a faceplant into glue and glitter. "Oh, thanks," Reed told the agent with a megawatt smile that seemed just a tad strained on his face. In truth, he wasn't very happy at all, and just wanted the day to be over with. These people were getting too close to the truth for comfort. Hopefully, he hadn't been wrong about the murderer, and the others would be able to find him. The sooner the BAU closed this case, the sooner he wouldn't have to worry about being exposed. "You sure finished this up pretty quick," Morgan commented, offhandedly, sharing a quick glance with Garcia. It had only been half an hour since Reed had left to go work on this banner. In that time, they had brainstormed over how to get the kid to talk more about himself. They had realized quite suddenly that even though Reed had talked up a storm, he never really talked about himself. Sure, he sang songs about the things he liked, but he never mentioned what he did outside of work, what he believed, or anything personal like that. Not that anyone in the BAU expected him to spill his guts to them, but most people at least let something slip by accident. "Well, I may have started on it when I made the welcome banner," Reed admitted, face flushed bright pink as he grabbed a chair to stand on and began pinning the banner to the wall. "But you didn't know if we could catch this guy," Morgan said slowly as he tacked up the other side of the banner. "I know," Reed shrugged as he jumped down from the chair with childlike glee when he was done. "But I figured I might as well make one. I mean, Chief Marco said you guys were the best, so why wouldn't you be able to catch him?" he asked rhetorically. "Hold up there," Morgan said, somewhat concerned. "I'll be the first to admit we're good at what we do, but there are guys out there that we can't even catch." As much as Morgan hated to admit it, he felt it was better than lying. He didn't want Reed thinking they were like gods or something. "What? But you're the best! You can't not catch the bad guys," Reed shot back in a shaky voice as he made his eyes water up. It took years to be able to do that without drive-ups, but it was worth it. "Can't you take a compliment?" Garcia hissed in Morgan's ear, pinching his arms slightly to show her annoyance. Looking over at Reed's watery eyes, she felt her heart clench. It was like she was about to tell a child that Santa wasn't real. "We are the best, and we catch almost every bad guy out there that comes our way. Sadly, sometimes they slip away from us, but we always do our best to find them so they never hurt anyone ever again." "Really?" Reed sniffed, somewhat dramatically. By Frood's disproved theories, are they really buying this? He thought somewhat incredulously. I'm the one acting, and even I think I'm overdoing it. Of course, Penelope cooed, ruffling his hair. Right, Morgan? She asked him with a smile that clearly said, agree, or I will Photoshop you into several proactive poses. Yep, he said with a straight face, unable to decide if Reed was really naive enough to believe that they caught every unsub on their cases. Come on, he has to be pulling our legs, right? But looking at those big brown eyes, he began to doubt himself. Damn, he's either a good actor or he was dropped on his head as a child. So, kid, what do you do for fun around here? Morgan asked to get off the current subject and try and pry more personal information out of Reed. He had tried to get Garcia to look him up on her computer, but she refused, saying he wasn't an unsub, and she could get in trouble for using the database for personal reason. Not that that stopped her before, but she would feel guilty about looking up Reed because she liked him and didn't want to invade his privacy. Of course, looking up his phone number and email address was a completely different story. She was not going to lose contact with this cutie. He was way too entertaining to let go. I go shopping, he gushed. Sometimes I go to art shows, he admitted, deciding it wouldn't hurt to incorporate that after his earlier outbursts. But I'm usually broke from buying clothes. I knew those were designer jeans, Garcia purred, as she looked at his long legs encased in dark blue jeans that fit him nicely. Yeah, I have some with awesome designs and different colors, but the chief won't let me wear those. He said it was unprofessional, even though all I do is put away files and make sure evidence is sealed correctly and put in the right place. He told her with a pout, recalling the day he wore neon purple skinny jeans just to see what would happen, and the real reason the chief told him not to wear it. As it turns out, even women will grow up in pinch if they think they can get away with it. He remembered that horrible day. His butt had been quite sore afterwards. He swore he saw a bruise in the mirror when he checked at home. Marco had pulled him into his office at the end of the day and gave him a lecture on looking more professional. But Reed also knew the man was worried about him having a sore ass for the rest of his life. Suffice to say, Reed hadn't worn skinny jeans since. Really? No casinos, no hitting the clubs? Morgan butted in desperately, before the conversation could go into fashion. I think you're holding out on us, pretty boy. Come on, don't be shy. I bet the ladies are all over you on the dance floor. What? No, Reed stuttered, completely shocked at the agent's bold questions. I don't go to clubs. They're too dark, and I end up bumping and falling into people, he told the man, trying to will away the flush on his face. He had only ever gone to one nightclub, and it had been before Operation Dumb Blonde. He had immediately disliked the loud, thumping music and the crowd of sweaty bodies that almost pulled him in on the way to the bar. As for women, well, they hadn't even looked at him back then, or if they did, it was to sneer. Hell, even after his transformation, he still felt unconfident in his body, and he wasn't about to go to a bar just to be ridiculed by drunks. Then again, if the ladies here groped him just for wearing skinny jeans. You all right? Morgan asked, when Reed went bone pale and seemed to be on the verge of convulsing. I don't want to get raped, Reed muttered to himself in a haunted voice. Remember, he told himself, you don't wear those skinny jeans anymore. They worked a little too well. Excuse me? Garcia exclaimed, exchanging a shocked look with Morgan, whose face just split into a large grin. I said I don't want your stupid grapes, Reed replied, not even realizing his response made no sense, as he did an about face and tried to leave the room, intent on forgetting this whole conversation by shelving files and later a Star Trek and Star Wars marathon. So lost in thought, he smacked into the doorpost and had to right himself before making a second successful attempt, all without uttering a sound. This is because he runs into things so often it doesn't really bother him anymore. Ah, to be blonde is to be hazardous. Derek, what did we just do? Garcia asked in a hushed tone as she worriedly wrung her hands together. Don't worry, baby girl. He didn't mean it that way, Morgan assured her, his smile growing by the minute. How else could he have meant it? Garcia snapped, annoyed and shocked that Morgan found it funny. Garcia, think. If that kid you find so adorable walked into a club full of horny dancing people, what would happen? He asked her. They'd probably try to rip his clothes off him because he's so delicious. Ah, I get it. She giggled before another word could be said. Several voices were heard from the hallway. Looking, they saw the rest of their team coming their way as Chief Marco triumphantly shoved an angry-looking man down the hallway. That our guy? Morgan asked them as they entered the room. Mike Raleigh, senior student at the Nevada School of Fine Arts. A struggling student, to be more precise. We spoke to the teacher. It turned out that Mr. Raleigh was dangerously close to failing, along with having some very deep loans. That's the stressor. But why the women? Why not other students? Teachers? It wasn't for revenge, Emily took over. He was majoring in art history and photography. For his final project, he wanted to recreate famous paintings. No models were willing to do it. Apparently, he had a reputation for being too forceful. He started asking women that caught his eye on the street when he went out. When they said no, he began angry and began killing them. Wait, so he has pictures? Garcia asked, her tone telling them how disgusted she was over the whole thing. Yes, JJ confirmed sadly. We found them hanging in his personal studio. All the seniors are given their own studios that are basically soundproof to help their concentration. After he killed the woman, he said he dragged them into nearby alleyways to do it. He brought them back to his studio and began to work. Not only that, but he's a narcissist. Hotch took over. He told us they deserved it for refusing to help him make the art world a better place. Jerk, Garcia growled with a vicious stare. The group was quiet for a moment as they took the time to absorb the fact that the unsub was caught and the woman of Las Vegas no longer had to worry about being taken. It was a wonderful feeling, tinged with regret that they couldn't save the previous victims. Suddenly, Gigi burst into soft laughter as her eyes took in what was hanging on the wall. I see Reed's been here, she teased as she pointed at the banner clearing up the confusion for her southern humor. Pow! Boom! Take that, bad guy! The BAU just snagged you. Yay! Emily read out loud with a fond smile. I'm gonna miss him, she admitted sadly. It's not too late, Hodge, Garcia told him seriously. I have a suitcase he can fit in. I'll even leave the clothes behind. She tried to convince him. I refuse to be an accomplice in any kidnapping conducted by you, he replied, equally serious. Besides, I already told you no, he reminded her. But we can't just leave him here, she whined, completely unashamed of how childish she was acting. I don't think I can live without seeing his sweet face, Garcia cried out dramatically. JJ and Emily nodded frantically in agreement. Look, Hotch said, not quite believing that he had to explain to several intelligent people who were giving him puppy eyes why kidnapping someone was against regulations. Reed is interesting, but that does not give you the right to take him away from his home. He's not a toy. It's his life, and he can do whatever he wants with it. Now, let's pack up here and head back to the hotel. We leave first thing tomorrow, he ended sternly, willing himself not to care at the disappointed looks on their faces. But I wanted to ask him for tips about split ends, he heard Emily mutter, and nearly rolled his eyes. Heading towards the door, he stopped suddenly, but didn't turn around. We leave tomorrow, as ordered, he repeated, but it would be out of our hands if the plane experienced some technical difficulties. He continued walking, ignoring the grins he could feel blooming on their faces. Hey, baby girl, Morgan started. How hard is it to hack into a plane's computer system? I'm asking for future references, in case we ever have an unsub with a plane fetish. Not hard at all, she gave a Cheshire grin, cracking her knuckles as she opened her computer. Not very hard at all. It was late in the evening when the young man walked through the entrance doors, silently thanking whatever deity up there that they were still open. Walking up to the receptionist, he began speaking to her as if he had talked to her 1,000 times before. Hey, Linda, I know it's late and visiting hours are technically over, but is it okay if I go see her? He asked, somewhat anxiously. I'm sorry, do I know you? She asked him, positive she had never met him before in her life. She would have definitely remembered that handsome face on a body like that. She had to stop herself from licking her lips. Do you know me? Linda, it's me. Spencer Reed. Oh, you're not used to seeing me like this, are you? He sheepishly asked the shocked woman, suddenly realizing the reason for her confusion. Mr. Reed? She asked incredulously, suddenly seeing the shy young man that always came dressed in sweater vests and khaki slacks with huge glasses and messy hair. Yeah, I just came from work, he explained, cursing the fact that in his haste to get here, he had forgotten to go home and change. He hoped his mom recognized him. He had showed her a picture of him looking like this once, and she said he looked strange. He had already known that. Thanks, Mom. Are you a model? Linda couldn't help but ask, wondering why he didn't dress like that all the time. He or she thought he was a professor of some sort. What? No, where did you... He cut himself off with a tired sigh. Please, can you tell me if my mom is still awake? And if she is, can I speak with her? It's important. Hmm, let me call Dr. Norman. You would know better than me. She told him as she picked up the phone and dialed the number. Humming, she only had to wait a few seconds for the other end to pick up. Dr. Norman? Yes, this is Linda at the front desk. Mr. Reed is here wondering if he could speak with his mother. All right, I'll let him know. Thank you, Dr. Norman. Hanging up, she gave Spencer a friendly smile. She's still up, and today's been a good day, so he says it's okay. He's actually speaking with her right now. Thank you, he told her as he dashed off, already knowing where his mom would be. Skidding to a halt near an open down the hallway, he took a deep breath. There she was, in her favorite chair, hands softly running over a beloved book. Beside her sat Dr. Norman. He was telling her something, and from the way her eyes lit up, he wondered if the man was informing her of his visit. Knock, knock, he called out to gain their attention. As they both looked, Dr. Norman's eyes widening at his appearance. But that wasn't the reaction he cared about. It was his mom's that made him nervous. Would she recognize him? What if she thought he was an impostor? Some days she didn't even remember who he was at all, and reacted violently to his presence. Those days had hurt, but he knew it wasn't her fault. Schizophrenia was a fickle of a disease. It was hard to tell what reactions it could produce. But Linda was right. Today was a good day for Diana Reed. Spencer, she called out, scolding him in a way only a mother could, with sternness mixed with gentleness. Don't stand in the doorway, it's rude. Sorry, he apologized as he walked over and sat in the chair next to her. That's an interesting look, Mr. Reed, Dr. Norman commented, speaking for the first time. Thank you, Spencer replied awkwardly, unsure of what else to say. Well, Dr. Norman started as he stood up. I'll leave you two in peace. 15 minutes, though, that's all I can give you, he told them apologetically as he left the room. All these rules and regulations, you'd think they were holding in the crazies, she snorted, and Spencer didn't know whether to frown or smile. He chose to frown as he thought over his current predicament and how he would break it to her. A hand fell softly over his own, bringing him out of his worries. His head shot up, and he met his mother's concerned eyes. You look conflicted. Tell me what's wrong, baby, she coaxed gently, her hand moving to stroke his hair. From the beginning, he had told her of his plan to hide from himself from the world while staying in plain sight. She had never approved, disliking the fact that her son felt the need to hide his gifts, but she did not stop him. He had always been careful to make sure to always wear clothes she was used to seeing him in when he came to visit her. But he still made sure she knew what he looked like in case he ever came in like he had tonight. What makes you think something's wrong? Maybe I just came to visit, he replied. Spencer, do not take me for a fool, she tapped him lightly on the head. I can tell that something's wrong just by looking at you. You're all pale and you're shaking slightly. Also, a mother always knows, Spencer. Always. So stop stalling and tell me, she ended in a firm voice. His heart ached as she watched his face fall. What had happened to her child now? After years of bullying, having his father leave, being so close to that awful pervert as a young child, and being forced to grow up so early to take care of her, what could have possibly hurt him now? Hadn't he suffered enough? Oh, Mom, he moaned out sadly as his face fell into his hands. It's all starting to crumble down around me. What? He really said that? Emily gasped out, laughing, sprawled on a hotel bed as Garcia filled her in on the last conversation her and Morgan had with Reed. Yes, now all I can think about is a nervous Reed walking past all these drooling women, Garcia admitted with a snort as the picture came to her again. Poor Reed. I can just imagine him being hit on by women and not having a clue about what they want, JJ said, her blue eyes bright with laughter. I thought the same thing, the tech analyst squealed. At that moment, the door opened, and Hotch walked in, his phone glued to his ear as he listened to the person on the other end. I see. No, it won't be a problem. Thank you for informing me, he ended and snapped the phone shut, putting it in his pocket. He looked up at his expectant teammates. That was the pilot. Apparently something's wrong with the jet's computer. It won't start up at all. We have 3 days if it's not fixed by then. They'll send us another plane. Hotch told them and turned a blind eye to the sly smiles blooming on their faces and the many fist bumps Penelope was suddenly receiving. How sad, Garcia sniffed in a fake voice. Well, I guess we'll just stay in town then. Of course. Now, what are we talking about? Hotch asked. Reed, they all replied together. They're making fun of how he would act in a club. Morgan filled Hotch in. I can see that being potentially dangerous, the man replied after a moment of thinking it over. Dangerous? Emily piped up. There's quite a bit of glass in clubs. And people. Lots of people, the leader said vaguely, but they connected the dots quickly enough. Yeah, I could see that, Morgan grinned. That kid tripping someone and causing a domino effect. All the ambulances in Vegas would be there for the broken bones. Why I find this all to be very interesting. Why are we having this impromptu meeting in my room? Rossi spoke up for the first time in obvious displeasure. Because you have cookies, you hoarder, Emily accused as she snatched a cookie he had smuggled out of the station. They were free. I have done no wrong. Reed, Rossi replied calmly. Except share, JJ muttered, as she also took a cookie. Reed just shrugged his shoulders. As far as he was concerned, it was first come, first serve, and the others had been too slow on the uptake. Enough scenarios, Hotch cut in, resuming his persona as the leader of their team. We are all here because, as bad as this sounds, we all want to know more about Spencer Reed, yes? At the nods, he continues. Right. So, let's treat this like we would a case and start with what we know. His name's Spencer Reed, and he works a low-paying job at the police department. This could mean he's not very motivated or could do better for himself but can't. Morgan started. No, Emily argued. He has to have money stashed away somewhere. The clothes he wears are not cheap. Also, he's up to date on all the trends, so he cares about his appearance. He's very clumsy. This could be natural, or could be easily distracted, JJ added to the conversation. He can change from happy to sad and back in 2 seconds flat, Morgan said, snapping his fingers as he remembered Reed crouching under his desk, crying before suddenly turning back into his usual happy self. So, you think he's emotionally unstable? Hotch asked. I think unstable is too strong of a word, but yeah, I think something's wrong. What about you, Rossi? Got anything to add? He asked the seasoned profiler. I don't think he's emotionally unstable, at least not in the way that could be a threat to himself or others. Rossi drew out slowly. I think he's unconfident in himself and his ability and dumbs himself down for others. He was probably bullied quite viciously in school, and guessing from his extreme need to hide, I'm assuming his home life was not stable. You think he's hiding his true abilities? Hotch stated. I think he's hiding everything he can about himself, Rossi responded. Only one way to find out, Hotch said, turning to Garcia. Look him up and see what you can find. What? She exclaimed, shocked at his words. But, sir, I was told to only use our network for cases I could get into a lot of trouble. I'm ordering you to do it, he said firmly, stifling her protests. As of now, I'm considering Spencer Reed a person of interest. Oh, for what reason? Rossi asked, impressed, at the loophole Hotch just made. Officially, he might be good in our mailroom. Unofficially, because I fear I may have to arrest some of you on stalking and possibly kidnapping charges. What you got, baby girl? Morgan asked as smiles were exchanged around the room. You know, honey, I realize I make this look easy, but it takes more than 2 seconds to find a person and dig into every nook and cranny of their life. Do you know how many Spencer Reeds live in Las Vegas, let alone Nevada? She asked, never taking her eyes off the screen. Sorry, you can narrow it down, right? Of course. Like I said, it's going to take time. And you talking to me is distracting. Go eat a cookie, she told him. Ouch, Mama, ouch, he said, her blunt dismissal blindsiding him. That's the second time Morgan's been rejected, Emily told JJ, not even bothering to lower her voice, and giving Morgan a sweet smile when he gave her a look. Must be karma, JJ teased him. If anyone deserves karma, it's you guys for teasing me so much these past few days, he mock growled as he snatched a cookie. While I'm happy I was able to provide you with food, I must caution, I will be very displeased if I am left with crumbs. Rossi warned them in a silky voice dipped in danger. He happened to like those cookies very much. He wondered if he could find out where Reed got them. Perhaps he could get the recipe. Sorry, the three thieves mumbled, silently, though they thought of how strongly Rossi sounded, like he belonged in the mafia at that moment. I had no idea you liked cookies so much, Dave, Hotch muttered quietly next to him. The finer things, Aaron. I enjoy the finer things in life, and those cookies happen to be on that list. The older man replied seriously. Aha! found you, my sweet," Gusaya cheered from her laptop, gaining everyone's attention. Let's see here. Spencer Reed, born October 9, 1981, to William and Diana Reed, graduated from Las Vegas Public High in... She trailed off, her eyes widening. Oh my god. What'd you find, Garcia? Hotch asked, concerned at her shocked look. I have no idea how to say this, she said softly, but they couldn't have heard her louder if she yelled it. Just read what's on your screen, baby girl, Morgan told her, wondering what was on that screen that surprised her so much. All right, she took a deep breath. Spencer Reed graduated from Las Vegas Public High in 1994 when he was 12. Come clean? Mom, that's the last thing I want to do, Spencer said frantically after he finished his story. Spencer, you know how I feel about lies. I never liked the thought of you hiding your talents from the world in the first place, she told him resolutely. Besides, you can't tell me that in that brilliant mind of yours, you never expected this day to come. That you never expected someone to would discover you. Lies always fall apart sooner or later. You know that. I know, he frowned miserably. I just don't want it to be anytime soon. Spencer, it's been 4 years since you started this lie. Experiment. It was an experiment to see how people reacted differently to people they thought less intelligent. It doesn't matter what it started out as. It's been twisted into a lie. She cut him off. Spencer, I don't understand why you're being so stubborn about this. You've told me more than once how much you hate acting dumb. In fact, I never understood why you felt the need to hide your genius in the first place. Please, baby, help me understand what's going on in your head, Diana pleaded, desperately wanting to help her son, but was at a loss of how. Because it was better, Mom, Spencer burst out, jumping to his feet. It was better to be thought of as stupid. Suddenly I was free. No more expectations to always know the answer. No more painful encounters with jealous and angry people. No more being the smartest kid in the room. No more being the only kid in the room, he ranted as he paced around the room. No more being looked upon like a freak. No more being the odd one out. No more loneliness, he ended sadly. Oh, Spencer, she whispered as she stood up. But no, that's not right. I was still lonely. He gave a bitter laugh. But no tears. He had cried enough. I discovered that despite the smiles, the laughs, and the good times, I was still unbearably, unconditionally lonely. But hey, at least this time it came without most of the injuries that I'm used to. So that has to be a step up, right? And I was fine with that. I was fine being a fake and getting roughed up a little because at least they weren't doing it because I was smart. I wasn't looked upon as a social pariah. This way, I was more accepted, partially, and that was more than enough. For a long time, that was more than enough for me. He told her, voice ragged, brown eyes desperately pleading her to understand. Baby, she said, hugging him tightly, feeling him shudder from the force of his emotional upheaval. You should never have felt like that. Never, Spencer. But I did. I do, he confessed in a small voice against the crook of her neck, accepting her comfort that had been so rarely given to him as a child. And then they came, and suddenly my perfectly crafted persona, was under more pressure than it had ever been before, and they weren't even intentionally doing it. Stupid BAU for bringing their geographical profiles, making me feel like me again. Stupid agents for being so nice and kind. Stupid me for wanting to have what they have. Isn't that something, Mom? I haven't even known them for 3 days, and I want to be with them. I want to discuss crimes and give statistics and create profiles and be their friend. Virtual strangers. He ended in such a pitiful laugh. All she could do was hold him tighter. Shh, calm down, Spencer, she told him softly. It's going to be all better. Perhaps not at first, but it will get better. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep, he said, looking at her with the wreck of a smile, throwing her own advice back at her that she had given to him so many times over the years. Don't make me ground you, young man, she jested in mock sternness. Heh, every time you did, you forgot a few hours later, he replied, reminding her of the old days. Yes, I would wonder why you stayed in your room on such beautiful days. You would have to remind me. Most children wouldn't have bothers. Sometimes I didn't, he admitted, but I knew when I deserved punishment, Mom. Yes, you did. You don't deserve it now, I think. Perhaps a reprimand, but not a punishment. Mom, excuse me, Dr. Norman interrupted the two. I'm sorry, Spencer, but visiting hours are over, he told them regretfully. Both of them looked at each other with twin frowns, and Spencer squirmed a little, not wanting to admit that he would really just like to stay with his mom tonight. Her presence always calmed him down and made him feel safe. Dr. Norman, may Spencer stay the night with me? Diana asked, in tune with her child needs. Diana, you know that's against regulations. Please? I promise to cooperate and try out that new medication you prescribed to me without a fuss, she bargained. Well, all right, just for tonight, though, he relented, knowing how difficult Diana could be when she felt like it. She was a force to be reckoned with on those days. Come on, Spencer, she said, tugging his arm. You look like you haven't slept well in ages. She was right, of course, but he wasn't going to make her worry. That night, cramped up on a couch caddy cornered to her bed, he slept wonderfully for the first time in what felt like years. The sun shone brightly the next morning, and for the first time in a long time, he truly felt like smiling. He was in a good mood today. He had a good night's sleep and a semi-lovely breakfast with his mom. He says semi-lovely because she convinced the other patients to start a food fight with the workers as a form of rebellion. And even though he was still in yesterday's clothes, with messy hair and looking like a bum, he felt refreshed and energized. If he knew how to whistle, he would. Getting off at his stop, he cheerfully walked to his apartment. Mom's right. I have to come clean, but I still have time, he thought as he searched for his keys. Who knows, maybe they'll understand. Well, the BAU doesn't matter anymore. The case is done, and they're on their way back to Virginia. The officers and secretaries, though, they deserve the truth. Just as he fished out his keys, a voice called out from behind him. Rough night, pretty boy? Dropping his keys in shock, he whirled around to see the whole BAU team looking at him. Oh, he swallowed after a moment of silence, trying to wrap his mind around why they were in front of his apartment when they could have been thousands of miles up in the air. Come to think of it, how did they know where he lived? Hi, he greeted them lamely with a small wave, wondering why he felt like an intervention was heading his way. Please don't tell me they need to talk. Reed, Hodge started, taking a step forward, making his black sunglasses glint dangerously in the light. We need to talk. Damn it. In the notes, there are a couple of anagrams that I just wanted to include. Pierce Stearns for Spencer Reed. Leah Hope, Zophelia, Anna Osmill, Mona Lisa, Mia Bard, Barmaid, Pearl Vermeer, Pearl Vermeer, Sorry Doft, Two Fridas, Mike Raleigh, I'm a Killer.